I ran the factory floor for 22 years without a single major accident. My reward? A cardboard box for my belongings. My name is Tom Callahan, 59 years old, lead foreman at Dayton Precision Automotive in Dayton, Ohio. We made critical components for car engines, pistons, crankshafts, precision work where a single flaw could mean disaster on the highway. That Monday morning, Susan from HR called me into the boardroom. Richard Hayes, the new operations director who'd been with us barely 4 months, sat there with a laptop, polished shoes, crisp tie. The guy had never touched a wrench or walked the floor beyond a quick safety tour. "Tom, we're making some organizational changes," Susan said, pushing a folder toward me. "The company's consolidating supervisory roles." Richard nodded, muttering about market dynamics and cost efficiencies. I opened the folder, severance package, 2 weeks to train my replacement, half my pension vested immediately, the rest in monthly drips. The company logo on the letterhead was new, redesigned last year without a word to us on the floor. "Your replacement starts tomorrow," Susan added, like she was announcing a lunch special. "Mark Thompson, business degree from Ohio State. Very promising." I stared at the tables with grain, my chest tightening. 22 years, no major accidents. Over 300 workers went home safe under my watch. I'd crafted the safety protocols still in use, set the maintenance schedules, trained every foreman and technician. "I understand," I said, my voice steady despite the ache in my gut. Richard looked relieved. Susan's smile didn't touch her eyes. That night, I drove the long way home, past the old steel mills along the Great Miami River, their rusted skeletons glowing under the moonlight. My dad worked in those mills before the jobs moved overseas. "Tom, a man's worth is in what he builds," he'd say. I'd built something at Dayton Precision, a system, a legacy, a safe haven. Now I had 2 weeks to hand it over to a kid who'd never understand what he was unraveling. At home, I called my old friend Pete, who'd retired last year. "They're letting me go," I told him, my voice cracking. "Bastards," he growled. "You gonna fight it?" "Not yet," I said, staring at my work boots by the door, their leather scarred with 22 years of factory grime. "But they'll feel it when I'm gone. Some things can't be taught in 2 weeks." They didn't know what they were losing. I started at Dayton Precision when my daughter, Sarah, was a toddler. My wife, Ellen, and I were 5 years married, and that job meant stability, insurance, a future. I worked 3 shifts a week at first, then supervisor after 3 years, assistant foreman after 7, lead foreman when old Bill Carter retired. The floor was my second home. I knew every machine's hum, could sense when the main stamping press was off before any alarm blinked. I could spot a safety hazard from 50 feet, smell when coolant needed replacing, feel a half-degree shift in the shop's air. Ellen used to tease that I loved the factory more than our home. Maybe she was right. When she left 10 years ago, taking Sarah to Oregon, the factory became my anchor. Holidays, snowstorms, nights when half the crew couldn't make it, I was there. The company changed hands twice in my time. First, Great Lakes Manufacturing in 2010, who kept things steady. Then, in 2020, Pinnacle Equity Partners bought us, private equity with algorithms and buzzwords. They slashed redundancies immediately. I saw it in small ways at first, tighter maintenance budgets, cheaper parts, longer gaps between equipment servicing. They replaced 2 of my best mechanics with temps, cut spare parts inventory, pushed production quotas higher each quarter. 6 months ago, Richard Hayes arrived with his MBA and dashboards. At his first floor meeting, he announced, "We're rolling out performance analytics across all units. Data-driven decisions are the future." My lead machinist, Javier, pulled me aside after. "Tom, this guy's trouble." He asked if we could skip the lockout-tagout to save time. I told Javier we'd handle it like always, but the red flags kept coming. Richard stopped joining safety reviews. My emails about equipment upkeep went unanswered. Training budget requests were denied 3 times. Then they hired 3 junior supervisors, fresh graduates, who questioned protocols we'd honed for decades. "Tom, do we really need full diagnostics after every shift?" one asked. Another, "The manual says weekly inspections are enough." I started keeping my own records, photos, dated logs, every safety concern documented. Something told me I'd need proof of what we'd done right. I just didn't expect the end to come so fast. Mark Thompson, my replacement, showed up in loafers and a tie, clutching a tablet. 28, slick hair, handshake like he'd practiced it in a seminar. "I'm excited to learn from you, Tom," he said. "I've analyzed the production data and see some efficiency gains already." I handed him steel-toed boots and safety glasses. Floor first, data later. For 2 weeks, I showed Mark the ropes, maintenance schedules, safety rules, personnel files, introductions to every shift lead. But he missed the heart of it. He didn't ask Javier about his daughter's college plans, didn't know Maria on the assembly line needed brakes for her asthma, didn't learn that the old milling machine needed coaxing on frosty mornings. On my last Thursday, I overheard him in the break room with Richard. "With the new shift plan, we can cut 1 maintenance roll," Mark said. "And Tom's extra safety checks on the stamping press? The manual doesn't require them." Richard beamed. "That's the fresh thinking we need." They didn't see me in the doorway, my heart sinking. These weren't just cost cuts, they were dismantling lives. That afternoon, I called a quiet meeting with my trusted crew, Javier, Maria, Carl from maintenance, and Denise, the night shift lead, in the parking lot after hours. "They're going to cut corners," I warned. "Mark doesn't know what he's undoing." "What do we do, Tom?" Javier asked. "Document everything," I said. "Every skipped check, every odd noise. If it goes wrong, call me, not them." I gave them my number on scraps of paper, my hands trembling with purpose. My last day, I cleared my locker. Mark was already at my desk, rearranging files. I handed him the keys. "Any final advice?" he asked, eyes on his tablet. "Listen to the floor," I said. "The machines speak if you know how." He gave a polite nod, clueless. I walked out, no cake, no speech. Susan shook my hand, and my badge deactivated as I left the lot. But I wasn't done with Dayton Precision. Not yet. 3 weeks later, Javier called. "They're stretching maintenance on the stamping presses to bi-weekly," he whispered. "Document it," I said. "Log every pressure spike, every leak." 2 days later, Carl called. They rejected my parts order for the backup compressor. Said it can wait. I kept a meticulous log of every call, every cut, every risk. At 4 weeks, I emailed Richard and Susan, calm but firm, "I've heard reports of changes to safety and maintenance protocols. With my 22 years of experience, I'd be glad to consult on the risks." Susan replied in an hour, "Thank you, Tom. Mark's driving efficiencies, and the transition's smooth. We'll reach out if needed." A brush off. At 6 weeks, the first accident hit, a gear jam on the main press, halting production for 3 hours. No injuries. Then a coolant leak in week 7. 3 electrical faults in week 8. Denise called after each one. "Mark's blaming the equipment, says it's outdated," she said. My blood boiled. That equipment ran like a dream when we cared for it. By week 10, I couldn't sit idle. I drove to the plant at lunch, parked across the street, and waved Javier over. "How bad is it?" I asked. "Production's down 12%, he said, glancing around. "They fired Carl, called him resistant. Mark's buddy runs maintenance now, guy doesn't know a gasket from a bolt. Anyone hurt? I pressed, my stomach nodding. Not yet, but Denise nearly lost a finger when a safety switch failed. Mark called it her fault. I made a call that night to the Ohio Occupational Safety Board, speaking to an inspector named Laura Grayson. I laid out my history, the changes, my fears. We'll do an unannounced inspection within 2 weeks, she promised. I exhaled, feeling the wheels turning. 3 days later, Javier called, panicked. They know, Tom. Someone leaked you're behind the inspection. Richard's losing it. My heart sank. Then came the legal letter, delivered to my doorstep. Dayton Precision accused me of business interference and breaching confidentiality, threatening a lawsuit. I called my lawyer, Ed Walsh. They're bluffing on the confidentiality part, he said. You haven't shared trade secrets. But they can bury you in legal costs. Can they stop the inspection? No. Once it's scheduled, it's happening. But watch your back, Tom. The inspection came and went. Dayton Precision passed, barely. Laura called me after. They fixed the obvious issues, but their maintenance logs were spotty, and some workers sounded coached. Any penalties? I asked. Minor ones. Not enough to change much. I hung up, frustration burning. They'd gamed the system, fixed just enough to skate by. That weekend, Denise showed up at my house, nervous, with a USB drive. Real maintenance logs, not the fakes they showed the inspectors, she said. And emails between Richard and Pinnacle about their cost optimization plan. We pored over the files for hours. It was worse than I'd thought. Pinnacle had planned these cuts a year before I was fired, targeting overpaid veterans like me. One email from a Pinnacle exec chilled me: insurance handles accidents. Missed targets lose investors. They were betting on luck over lives. My people's lives. There's more, Denise said. Mark's rejecting critical parts orders. Look. The list was damning: safety relays, backup valves, all deferred. Why risk this? I asked. Maria's cousin got hurt yesterday, Denise said. A guard failed on the press. Kid's 20, lost a thumb. They're blaming him, pushing him to sign papers while he's doped up. My fists clenched. This wasn't just negligence, it was malice. I called Javier, Maria, and 4 other floor veterans to meet at Pete's house the next day. I showed them the evidence. What's the plan? Javier asked. Leverage, I said. We need records of every shortcut, every failure, every near miss. Dated, photographed. They'll fire us if they catch us, Pete warned. I know, I said, my voice thick. So we're careful. Give me 2 weeks. For 2 weeks, I was a ghost haunting Dayton Precision. Javier and the others fed me data, shift logs, photos, incident reports. I built a case, airtight and undeniable. I made 3 moves. First, I met Dan Harper, a former client now at Buckeye Automotive, our biggest customer. Over coffee, I showed him photos of defective crankshafts shipped last month. These passed inspection? Dan asked, jaw tight. Their new process, yeah, I said. I'd hate for Buckeye to take a hit because of bad parts. Dan nodded. We'll audit their quality ourselves. Second, I sent Laura at the safety board a detailed packet, dates, photos, violations. This is serious, she said. I'm escalating it. Keep my name out for now, I urged. Third, I took a risk and texted Mark, asking to meet for lunch off-site. He agreed, looking exhausted when he arrived, tie loose, eyes bloodshot. The floor's a mess, he admitted. Equipment's failing, corporate's on my back, and I can't hit quotas. They set you up, I said. Those maintenance schedules you cut? They weren't fluff, they kept things running. Richard says the budget can't handle it, Mark muttered. How's that budget now with production tanking? I leaned in. In 2 weeks, Buckeye will demand a quality audit. The safety board will hit again. And a report on every violation will reach Pinnacle's board. You can be their scapegoat, or get ahead of it. Document every order Richard killed, every safety concern ignored. Mark stared at his coffee. They'll fire me. Maybe, I said, sliding him my card. But you'll sleep better. 1 week to decide. 3 days later, he texted, I'm in. What do you need? The plan was coming together. Then, the main stamping press, the floor's backbone, failed catastrophically. No injuries, but production stopped cold. At 6 a.m., Richard called. Tom, we're in trouble, he said, voice strained. The press is down, orders are piling up, and maintenance can't figure it out. You fired Carl, who knew that press inside out, I said. Can we skip the lecture? We need you as a consultant. Name your price. I didn't hesitate. $300 an hour, cash. I bring my team, Javier, Denise, Maria. Full control over repairs and parts. And I want all maintenance records since I left. A long pause, then, fine. I walked into the plant an hour later. Chaos, workers idle, managers panicking, the press silent. Mark met me, relief in his eyes. It's bad, Tom. I inspected the press and saw it all, cascading failures from months of skipped maintenance, exactly what I'd warned about. I turned to Richard. I can fix this, but first, I opened my phone, showing an email I just sent to Pinnacle's board, the safety board, and Buckeye. This details every safety violation, every cut, every risk you've created. Richard paled. You're sabotaging us. No, I said. I'm saving you from yourselves. Now, want this press fixed? As we worked, a new threat emerged. Pinnacle sent a corporate lawyer, Evelyn Cross, to the plant. She cornered me on day 2, her voice icy. Withdraw your report, Tom, or we'll sue you for defamation and economic damages. We've got your severance agreement, you signed a non-disparagement clause. My heart raced, but I held firm. That report's factual, backed by records. Sue me, and it all goes public, every email, every fake log. Evelyn's eyes narrowed. You're playing a dangerous game. So are you, I shot back. People are getting hurt. The standoff hung over us as we repaired the press. Buckeye suspended orders pending their audit. The safety board launched a deeper investigation. Pinnacle dispatched a crisis team. By day 3, Richard was gone, reassigned to headquarters. Mark stayed, demoted, reporting to a new director, James Carver. James called me into the office after the press hummed back to life. Your report shook things up, he said. We're overhauling safety and maintenance across all sites. We want you as director of operations. He named a salary 30% higher than my old pay, with autonomy over safety protocols. I shook my head, the weight of 22 years pressing on me. Safety can't be a line item you trim quarterly. I'll consult, 3 days a week, my rate. I'll rebuild what I started, train your people right. But I'm not your employee. James nodded. Deal. I didn't return for the title or the money. I came back for Javier, Maria, Denise, and every worker who deserved to go home whole. For the kid who lost a thumb, and the ones who might have lost more. When I stepped onto the floor that next Monday, the machines sang their old, steady song. They knew their keeper was back.